Welcome, COM 103 students. This video is focused specifically on the first major speech, the informative speech, also known as the research informative or the speech to inform. So this video is just set up for me to go through the assignment instructions with you and hopefully clarify anything that maybe isn't clear for you yet. So let's jump right in. First, taking a look at the time limit for the speech. Every speech will have a specific minimum and maximum time limit that we're trying to fall within. For this one, it is 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, so a minimum of 5 minutes for the presentation, a max of actually 7 minutes and 30 seconds. You get a 30-second buffer beyond the max to wrap up before you get docked points. Okay, next important point is that the speech actually has two different parts that you get points for. The actual presentation itself is graded based on a number of factors, things like your introduction, your body, your conclusion, the content within those specific parts, but also things like verbal and nonverbal delivery, the use of your speaking outline, etc. All of that is combined to equal a grade of 100 points. There is also a second aspect to all of the major speeches in COM 103, and that is what we call a full sentence outline. All the full sentence outlines in the course will be worth 40 points each, and the idea behind the full sentence outline is pretty much it's a typed out document that enables you to lay out your speech and all of its content from beginning to end, and you submit those to the Dropbox before the deadline, which we'll talk about here in a moment when we get to that part of the assignment. Okay, so time limit 5 to 7 minutes, presentation worth 100, outline worth 40. So what is this speech all about? Well, we do this as the first major speech because it's one of the most common types of speaking, and it's a really important skill to have. Informative speaking is about you being able to do a few very important things: share knowledge, educate an audience, and increase understanding. So that's the main goal here. We're trying to educate. We're trying to increase understanding and knowledge about a specific topic. So with that said, what topics work well for an informative speech? I would say typically the most common topics are things like people and or places. However, events and issues are also options for good informative speaking topics. We'll talk about topic selection here in a moment, later in the video. So you are specifically in this speech defining, describing, and explaining. And it's important that we are very clear that we are not doing a persuasive speech here. So we're not trying to persuade an audience to take a position or motivate an audience to do something. You get the opportunity to do that later in the semester in the persuasive speech. So really important in the informative speech to not be persuasive and just focus on developing a clear, well-structured informative speech with a heavy focus on the content and the organization. Okay? So with that said, let's hop into the directions for putting your speech together. The first step in pretty much any speech is going to be picking a good topic. Topic selection is key. So before I get into the specifics on the page here that's on the screen, I will just say that the best topics generally are topics that you personally are interested in, maybe topics that you already know a bit about or you've done research on the topic in the past. It will help you to get through the research, get through the speech construction, and deliver a better, more effective speech if it's something that you're actually interested in. So keep that in mind. Your topic for this speech must be something that you can inform or educate the class about. So ask yourself, is this topic set up in a way where I can increase audience's understanding about my person or place or issue? Be careful not to choose topics, once again, that lead themselves to persuasive speaking. That said, you could totally do an informative speech on a nonprofit organization, informing the audience about the history of the organization, what they do, the impact that they've had on communities, how people get involved, but being very careful not to actually persuade the audience to volunteer or get involved, because that would turn it into a persuasive speech. Okay, so I gave a couple examples here on the sheet related to topics that I think would work well for this type of speech. Don't feel limited by these examples. These are just two of thousands and thousands of potential topics that could work well for this speech. My first example is a historical figure, a person, a well-known historical figure, Leonardo da Vinci. And so that specific purpose statement goes like this: I want my audience to know more about the life and works of Leonardo da Vinci. And, I might lay out that speech where, I'd have an introduction with a attention grabber and a main point preview, and then I'd try to break the body into maybe 3 main points. Maybe early life of Da Vinci, his professional career as an artist and thinker, and then maybe a third sub-point would be his lasting impact or his influence or his, technological innovations that have led to future technologies in modern times. So that might be a way that I think about organizing and constructing a speech about a historical figure. If you do an informative speech on a person, it does not have to be a historical figure. It could be a modern person, a still living person. That would be totally acceptable. Example 2 here is actually a place, obviously, Papua New Guinea. So example 2, specific purpose statement: I want my audience to better understand the culture of Papua New Guinea. And, once again, I could break that speech down into some subtopics, maybe, geography and landscape, history, and culture would maybe be 3 good subpoints when doing an informative speech on a place like Papua New Guinea. You also have the option for this speech of doing an issue. Okay, an issue can be your topic in an informative speech. However, you have to be careful. If you go with an issue for the informative speech, make sure that you're not taking one side or the other on the issue. The idea is you're informing the audience about the issue. You're presenting both sides of the issue, but you're not advocating a position. So, a couple examples here of issues that could be relevant for an informative speech. I want my audience to better understand the issues surrounding the immigration debate, obviously a very current issue in the United States and elsewhere. Example 2, I want my audience to gain a better understanding of the economic problems facing the state of Illinois, would be another relevant topic choice. Notice one of those is, United States focused, while one is a bit more narrow and focused on the state of Illinois. You could even narrow that even more and have a Champaign-Urbana specific focus for an issue. Okay, so a couple things to think about when you're choosing that topic. Make sure it's a topic that's going to provide some sort of new information for the audience. So we want to avoid really mundane topics, things that aren't really going to add to the audience's knowledge. Once again, it's going to be a good idea to pick a topic that you are personally interested in, that you can actually research the topic and find some credible source material, to back up the information that you're sharing in your speech. To get things like dates, times, locations, etc. Audience analysis. It's always important to be aware of who you're speaking to, and whenever possible, adapting your topic to the audience, or at least letting the audience know why it's important to them. So, keep in mind that you are presenting to groups of college students. Even though there might be an age range there, we all have that commonality of being college students at Parkland. And think about ways that you can connect your topic to the audience and make it that much more important to them. Hence, they will listen better and be more engaged when you're speaking. Okay, next part is research. This, all the major speeches will require some outside source material and research that you will be doing. Once again, things like statistics, background information, facts. You're not going to have all that stuff off the top of your head. You're going to have to look it up. And it's going to be very important for you to use credible sources and to always cite your sources when you're using information from your research. So even if you're not quoting a source word for word, you still need to put the author's name in parentheses after that paraphrase to let me know where that thought, where that general information came from. Obviously, if you're copy and pasting and quoting directly from a source, that needs to be in quotations and also have the author's name in parentheses at the end. For the informative speech, you're required to have at least 3 different sources. For the most part, they need to be authoritative and recent. That said, thinking back to the topic of Leonardo da Vinci, it might be totally acceptable to use a historical source from the 1800s, even 1700s to talk about Da Vinci. But if I'm talking about the immigration debate in the United States, current source materials are probably going to be very important when presenting that issue. Okay, only one of your 3 sources can be a website. Okay, the other 2 sources need to be what I call non-web sources, and some sources you'll actually find on the internet will count as non-web sources, and the main ones will be the ones you find on the Parkland Library website, which is a great portal for academic journals, peer-reviewed articles, newspapers, videos, etc. Okay, so there is a link to a special page just for COM 103 on Parkland Library's website, which goes through all sorts of ways to find credible research on your topic. Take a peek into Cobra right here in the Week 2 module. I've added this link, library course page for research. It looks like this, and there are numerous tabs here where you can gather background with encyclopedias and dictionaries. You can drill down with articles with peer-reviewed scholarly journals. You can learn how to evaluate the credibility of your information and how to properly cite your sources in APA or MLA format. So it's going to be really helpful to check out that link and go through that when you're doing your research. Once again, be sure to use sources that are recent, reliable, and relevant to your topic. Now, you can have more than 3 sources. If you use more than 3 sources, you can have more than one website. But if you're just hitting that minimum of 3, 2 of them need to be non-web or come from the Parkland database, while 1 can be a website. If you're using websites as sources, make sure they are credible. Please don't use any wiki-type sources or websites like about.com. Wikipedia is a great site. It's a great start-off point to get a basic idea about a topic, but it should not be used as an actual source. You shouldn't be quoting information from a Wikipedia page. Use it as a jump-off point, and more specifically, go down to the bibliography at the bottom and link to some of those books and articles that were used in the entry. That can be a real goldmine for your research. Finally, you will be typing a full sentence outline and submitting that to the Dropbox by the deadline of Friday, July 6th at 5 p.m. That's the same deadline time for online submissions of speeches. I'm going to be posting a separate video specifically focused on full sentence outlines and what I'm looking for there, so keep an eye out for that, okay? The full sentence outline is graded separately and worth 40 points. Finally, you will need to use a speaking outline during your speech. I recommend note cards. You can use a full sheet of paper if you prefer, but note cards are much less obtrusive. This is a condensed version of your full sentence outline and should only have keywords and phrases, not full sentences. It's not a script. You should not read directly from it. It's just to keep your place. You can have up to 5 note cards or 2 sheets of paper. Rehearse your speech. Practice. It will make it better, I promise. Your speech grade is based on topic selection, organization, your sources, your verbal citations, your delivery, nonverbal and verbal, your speaking outline, and your time limit. Finally, speeches are due online submissions by Friday, July 6th at 5 p.m. You also have the option of delivering your speech in person during one of the 2 scheduled on-campus speech sessions next week, Tuesday, July 3rd or Thursday, July 5th. I will send a separate email and post an announcement specifically related to those on-campus speech sessions. Presentation worth 100, outline worth 40. Thanks. Talk to you soon.